Usually when we look at historical or theological documents, um, there's a certain distance we expect from them, right?
Right, yeah, a formal tone.
Exactly. Like an academic detachment or, I don't know, a set of rigid rules.
Yeah.
It feels like examining an artifact behind thick museum glass. You can see it, but you can't really touch it.
Yeah, they can feel very removed from actual human emotion.
Completely. And if you're listening right now expecting a dry academic treatise for this deep dive, well, let me stop you right there. Because right at the very top of the document we're exploring today, there is this authorship nameplate that practically tells a novel's worth of history in just a single line.
It really is one of the most striking authorial signatures you could possibly come across. So the author introduces himself as Frank Leo, but immediately alongside that is his Chinese name, which is Lu Zongtang.
Wow.
Right? And then we see his Greek name, Farkiskos Moises Leitakis, and finally his Hebrew name, Moshe Halevi or Moshe Levin.
That is just an incredible mix. And that multicultural reality, it isn't just confined to the nameplate either. The text itself is this remarkable linguistic tapestry.
It really is.
We're looking at a document titled Consolation and Words of Discourse. And it's written in Ladino, which is Judeo-Spanish, but it's deeply interwoven with ancient Hebrew and then fully translated into traditional Chinese. I mean, it crosses continents and alphabets in a single breath.
Which makes the context of its creation so deeply compelling. The author is a rabbi, and he's writing in the Hebrew year 5786. He describes himself in the text as a newly minted orphan.
A newly minted orphan. That's a heavy phrase.
It's devastating. He had already lost his father, and this document is anchored to the agonizingly fresh loss of his mother on August 8, 2025, which corresponds to the 8th of Av in the year 5785. So he's writing from the absolute epicenter of his own grief.
And that is really the mission of our deep dive today. We aren't just examining a catalog of Jewish mourning rituals. We're looking at a universal manual for navigating profound grief. We're exploring how a man, standing in the sudden ruins of his own heartbreak, tries to understand the soul and desperately searches for the wisdom to figure out how to continue living.
And to understand how he gets there, we really have to begin exactly where he begins, in the raw, immediate aftermath of loss. We have to understand the foundation of his grief before we can explore how the tradition helps him heal from it.
Wow.
So he opens with this incredibly painful image. He describes himself standing before his brethren, feeling like a man who has, quote, lost the light of his eyes.
Man, he does something really profound in those opening passages, too. He categorizes the pain of losing parents into two distinct facets. There's the physical pain and there's the spiritual pain.
Yes, that distinction is so important.
Okay, let's unpack this because the physical absence is usually what dominates our modern understanding of mourning.
Yeah.
It's the tangible stuff. Like if we think of our lives as a house, that physical pain is like suddenly losing all the furniture.
Right, the space is the same, but it's empty.
Exactly. The rooms are exactly the same, but they're just devastatingly empty. You keep reaching for a hand that isn't there or listening for a voice that's gone silent.
And the physical facet is entirely about that absence. But the text argues that the spiritual pain, that second facet of grief, is entirely different. The soul doesn't just feel an absence, it feels a rupture.
A rupture.
Yeah, the author describes it as if a part of the sky itself has shattered. So to follow your analogy, if the physical pain is waking up to find the furniture gone, the spiritual pain is realizing the roof of the house has been ripped off entirely, leaving you completely exposed to the elements.
You're just standing there looking up, and the structural integrity of your universe is just gone.
Yeah.
And the author actually grounds this shattering existential exposure in ancient texts. He pulls from the book of Job, citing the famous line, "Naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord took away."
Such a powerful verse.
It really is. And he also brings in Psalms 27. "When my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up."
And acknowledging that distinction between the physical absence and the spiritual rupture is crucial because it validates the sheer magnitude of the mourner's experience. It synthesizes why losing a parent feels so uniquely destabilizing.
Because it's not just missing them?
Right. It isn't just that you miss their company. Your parents are your origin point. They're the threshold through which you entered the universe. When they're gone, it's an existential reorientation. You are naked before the universe in a way you haven't been since the day you were born.
It gives the mourner permission to feel completely unmoored. But, I mean, sitting in that existential exposure is unbearable. A human being cannot survive long with no roof.
No, you can't.
So how does this rabbi keep from despairing? He has to completely reframe what death actually is.
And this is where the theology of the text steps in to address that spiritual rupture. The document emphatically states that death is not the end. The soul does not die. Instead, it returns to the Creator, to what the text calls the infinite light.
The infinite light.
Yeah, and he draws on the teachings of Ramban, the medieval scholar Rabbi Moshe ben Naaman, who teaches that the soul, when it leaves the body, simply returns to the God who gave it.
But the image that really stopped me in my tracks comes from Maimonides, specifically from his foundational philosophical work, The Guide for the Perplexed.
Oh, the kiss of heaven.
Yes. Maimonides describes the death of the righteous not as a loss, not as a fading out, but as a triumphant return. He calls it a kiss of heaven, where the soul attaches itself to the divine presence, the Shekinah, out of pure, unadulterated love.
It's beautiful.
It is, but I have to stop you there, actually. I want to push back on this idea for a second on behalf of anyone listening who might be in the thick of grief right now.
Sure, absolutely.
It is a beautifully poetic image, sure. But when you are the one left behind in that house with no roof, weeping because you can't call your mother anymore, framing death as a gentle, heavenly kiss, feels almost dismissive. Doesn't that risk minimizing the brutal, ugly reality of the loss?
That's a really fair point, but what's fascinating here is that the text anticipates that exact reaction. It doesn't minimize the pain. Remember, it just spent the entire first section fiercely validating the feeling of the sky shattering.
Right, okay.
The kiss of heaven concept isn't meant to erase the present grief. Its purpose is to expand the mourner's timeline.
But how does expanding a timeline help when the pain is entirely concentrated in the now? Like in this very second?
Well, when you're grieving, your entire world shrinks down to the present moment of absence. You are trapped in the immediacy of that empty chair. So the text uses these concepts to forcibly pull your gaze up to the horizon. It references the Talmud, specifically Tractate Barakat 17a, which gives a really vivid description of the world to come. It describes a realm entirely devoid of the physical burdens of our world. No eating, no drinking, no envy, no hatred, no competition. Just the righteous sitting with crowns on their heads, basking in the radiance of the divine presence.
Okay, so it isn't just poetic imagery. It's providing a very specific structural hope. It's saying, the parent you loved, who lived with rectitude and love, is not lost in a void. They have reached a destination of ultimate peace.
Exactly. It sets up the promise of a reunion. The timeline is expanded from the immediate, agonizing moment of loss to the eternal horizon where you will meet again. It gives the mind somewhere to go when the physical world feels unbearable.
So the soul is at peace. The parents are wearing their crowns. But that brings us right back down to earth, doesn't it? Because the soul is fine, but the person reading this document is still standing in that exposed house.
Right. The living are still dealing with it.
Yeah, the focus has to shift back to the living. How do the living actually manage this overwhelming process without just being consumed by it?
Well, the tradition recognizes that grief is an ocean, and if you just dive in without a tether, you will drown. So the text reveals that the sages instituted very strict metrics for mourning to provide that tether, drawing specifically from the Talmudic tractate Mod Katan.
And the timeline is highly regimented. There are 3 days designated specifically for crying, then 7 days for lamentation and deep mourning.
Yes, the Shiva.
Right. And following that, there are 30 days where the mourner avoids things like getting haircuts or ironing clothes.
But the text makes a very important exception here. For most relatives, the intense mourning period concludes after those 30 days. But for parents, the mourning period extends to a full 12 months.
Because, as the text puts it, the bond between parent and child is as vast as the bond between heaven and earth.
It's a completely different level of loss.
It really is. And if you have ever had to go back to work 3 days after a funeral, you know exactly what a cliff feels like. Modern expectations often demand this rapid return to normalcy, leaving people to just free fall. But this tradition builds something entirely different. It builds a gradual ramp. I kind of think of this timeline as a scaffolding for grief.
I like that. Let's explore how that scaffolding actually functions, because in construction, scaffolding is put up to hold the weight of a structure when it can't support itself. So the 3 days of crying are the most intense support, acknowledging that you are entirely incapacitated. The 7 days offer a slightly wider structure, and the 30 days begin the very slow process of re-engaging with the mundane world, like letting your hair grow or wearing unironed clothes.
You take the scaffolding down piece by piece. You don't just rip it all away at once. It systematically reintegrates you back into society while constantly acknowledging that you are still, under repair.
Yes, but the scaffolding is vital, but it is not meant to be a permanent home. There is a vital caveat the rabbi includes in this section. After this designated 12-month period, you must return to life.
The text is uncompromising on that point. You cannot mourn intensely forever.
It has to be uncompromising. The reasoning is simple but profound. God wants us to live. The structured timeline honors the depth of the loss, but it actively prevents grief from becoming a permanent state of existence.
It creates a boundary.
Exactly, a boundary line that balances the absolute necessity of honoring the dead with the sacred obligations of the living.
But returning to life doesn't mean forgetting, though. It just means the relationship changes shape. And that brings us to what I see as the most transformative part of this text. The action plan for the living.
This is such a powerful section.
The mourner has survived the initial shattering, they've navigated the scaffolding, and they are stepping back into the world. The author asks, how do we continue?
And the answer isn't abstract at all. It's a highly specific, multi-tiered action plan for maintaining an active relationship with the departed. It covers speech, action, and study.
Starting with speech, the text says that when you quote a parent, you shouldn't just casually mention them. You should say, "Thus said my father, may I be an atonement for his resting place."
It forces a moment of reverence.
Yeah, and of course there's the daily recitation of the Kaddish prayer, which the text says elevates the parent's souls closer to God's throne.
The mechanics of the Kaddish are fascinating here. You're asking a grieving person, whose instinct is often to withdraw into silence and isolation, to stand up publicly every single day and speak words of praise out loud. It forces a physical action that disrupts the psychological paralysis of grief.
It literally rewires the brain from despair back to connection. And it doesn't stop at speech. There is action. The text commands the mourner to do charity, or tzedakah in their parents' name, quoting the proverb that charity saves from death.
Right.
And then there's studying the Torah in their merit. There is this hauntingly beautiful idea quoted from Rabbi Hanina in the Talmud regarding this. It says that when you study the words they taught you, quote, his lips move in the grave.
That image encapsulates the entire philosophy of this section, doesn't it?
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. What strikes me about this action plan is the sheer physicality of it. In a lot of modern cultures, we treat memory as a passive internal feeling. You sit quietly and remember someone. But this text treats legacy as a physical chore.
A physical chore, yeah.
Moving lips, handing out coins, speaking words aloud into the air. It turns memory into a daily job. What does this mean for how we view our relationship with those who are gone?
Well, it completely redefines legacy. You aren't just remembering the dead, you are acting as their hands and their voice in the present world. You become their ongoing agency.
You literally become a physical extension of them in the world of the living.
Exactly. The text emphasizes telling their good deeds to children and grandchildren and living with dignity, intention, which is called kavanah and love, and doing all of this to give them heavenly comfort, or nahat ruach.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The psychological brilliant stroke here is that the dead are only truly gone if you stop doing their work.
And the author drives this home by quoting Pirkei Hot, a compilation of ancient rabbinic ethical teachings. He reminds us that 1 hour of repentance and good deeds in this world is better than all of the world to come.
That is a massive theological pivot. It takes all the beautiful imagery of the kiss of heaven and the eternal crowns we discussed earlier and says that is a wonderful destination for the soul, but your power is here.
Right here, right now?
Yes, your power is in the physical world, in the present moment, through your actions.
It transforms the mourner from a passive victim of a shattered sky into an active agent of legacy. I mean, if we look at the entire journey this text has taken us on, it's just breathtaking.
It really is an incredible progression.
It started by acknowledging the complete devastation of sudden orphanhood. It validated the terror and the rawness of that spiritual rupture. Then, it provided the scaffolding of mourning, a measured, structured timeline to keep the mourner from drowning while they slowly repair their world.
Step by step.
Right. And finally, it handed the mourner an active, lifelong practice to keep the departed present through daily deeds.
And the rabbi concludes the document by drawing comfort from the Targum Onkelos, which is an ancient, highly authoritative Aramaic translation of the Torah. From it, he reminds the reader that the same God who wounds is the faithful healer, the Rofei Naaman, who heals the brokenhearted.
The faithful healer.
Yes, and he ends with a prayer that the souls of his parents be bound in the bundle of life, the Sror HaHayim.
It brings a sense of profound closure to a text born out of an open wound. Whether you're currently navigating your own grief, or if you're simply trying to figure out how to live your life with a bit more purpose, this document offers a remarkable blueprint.
It really does apply to everyone.
It asks us to treat every single moment with Kavanaugh with deep intention.
Yeah.
It challenges us to honor the people who built the foundations we currently stand on, to ensure their efforts didn't end when they left this world.
The transition from enduring passive grief to building an active legacy is a threshold we all have to cross eventually.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. It comes back to that incredible image the rabbi mentioned, about how when we speak the wisdom of those who have passed, their lips move in the grave.
Such a haunting visual.
It is. It suggests that the legacy of the dead completely relies on the physical voices of the living to keep speaking their truths. So ask yourself, whose words are you currently keeping alive in your daily actions? And perhaps more importantly, whose voice might fall permanently silent if you forget to share their story?